It starts with one unread message, then one missed deadline, a message you meant to reply to 3 weeks ago. Your room gets messier, your to-do list gets longer, your brain gets louder. And one day, you're sitting there, staring at the wall, wondering, why can't I do things that seem so easy for everyone else? If you have ADHD, or think you might, this feeling isn't laziness. ADHD isn't just about being distracted. Left unmanaged, it can quietly affect your career, your finances, your relationships, and the way you see yourself. In the next few minutes, you'll discover the 3 hidden ways ADHD can take control of your life, and more importantly, the practical steps that help you take that control back. Because once you understand what's really happening inside your brain, everything starts to make a lot more sense. Imagine an iceberg. The part above the water is all the world ever sees. You're late. You forget things. You interrupt people. Your room is a mess. You start projects, but never finish them. People look at that and come to one conclusion. You're just lazy. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. Under the surface is the part nobody sees. The constant mental exhaustion, the guilt, the shame, the anxiety of knowing exactly what you need to do, but feeling completely unable to start. If you've ever thought, I want to do it, so why can't I just begin? You're not alone. Here's what's happening. In many people with ADHD, dopamine signaling in these brain networks works differently. Dopamine isn't just the brain's reward chemical. It's also part of what helps your brain generate motivation and initiate actions. So when someone says, just sit down and do it, they're assuming your brain can make that transition as easily as theirs. But for someone with ADHD, there can feel like an invisible wall between wanting to do something and actually starting it. That's why forcing yourself over and over often doesn't solve the problem. Instead, it creates something even worse. Every unfinished task becomes another piece of evidence that whispers, maybe I really am lazy. But here's the truth. You're not fighting a lack of intelligence. You're not fighting a lack of effort. You're fighting a brain that manages attention and motivation differently. And once you understand that difference, you can finally stop blaming yourself and start using strategies that actually work. But there's something even more dangerous than ADHD itself: the shame spiral. This is where most people get trapped. More shame, more paralysis, and the cycle repeats. Listen carefully, because this might be the most important sentence in this entire video. You cannot shame yourself into functioning. If shame worked, you'd already be the most productive person on earth. The problem isn't that you don't care. The problem is that you've been trying to solve a neurological challenge with self-hatred. And that strategy was never going to work. The good news? Once you break the shame, you finally create space for solutions that actually do. The first trap is the one that looks like procrastination, but it isn't. Imagine this. You have an important assignment or a presentation due tomorrow. You somehow finish the work at the last possible moment, and people say, "See, you work best under pressure." But they don't see the stress, the sleepless nights, or the burnout that comes afterward. ADHD doesn't make you lazy. It often makes it incredibly difficult to activate your brain until the urgency becomes impossible to ignore. Over time, missed opportunities, poor performance, and constant stress begin to feel normal. And that's how careers quietly start falling behind. The second trap is one people rarely talk about: money. ADHD doesn't just affect attention. It can affect financial decisions too. You forget to pay bills, you buy things impulsively, you start subscriptions, and forget they even exist. You promise yourself, next month I'll budget. But next month becomes next year. It's not because you don't understand money. It's because planning ahead, delaying rewards, and keeping track of small details are all executive functions that ADHD can make much harder. Little mistakes become expensive habits, and before you realize it, your bank account starts reflecting the same chaos that's happening inside your mind. The third trap hurts the most. Relationships. You forget birthdays. You forget to reply to messages. You interrupt people without meaning to. Sometimes you become so overwhelmed that you disappear completely. Friends think you don't care. Family thinks you're irresponsible. Partners feel ignored. But inside, you care more than they could ever imagine. But here's the truth. ADHD doesn't define your character. It changes how your brain manages attention, memory, and executive function. Once you understand that difference, you stop fighting yourself and start building systems that work with your brain instead of against it. And that's exactly what we're going to do next. Here's the first pillar. Stop depending on willpower. Start depending on systems. If you have ADHD, your environment often has a bigger impact on your behavior than your motivation. So don't ask, how do I become more disciplined? Ask, how do I make the right action the easiest action? Put your medication or vitamins where you'll see them. Leave tomorrow's clothes ready tonight. Keep distractions out of reach before you start working. Set a timer for just 5 minutes instead of promising yourself an hour. Every small system removes one decision your brain no longer has to fight. The goal isn't to become stronger than ADHD. It's to build a life that doesn't rely on perfect focus. The second pillar is simple. Stop forcing yourself to work like everyone else. Your brain isn't broken. It just responds differently. Break large tasks into the smallest possible next step. Instead of saying, write the report, say, open the document. Instead of, clean the room, start with one shelf, one drawer, 1 minute. Small actions reduce the mental resistance that keeps you stuck. Momentum is often more powerful than motivation. Once your brain is moving, staying in motion becomes much easier. The third pillar might be the hardest. Stop attacking yourself for having ADHD. Self-awareness creates change. Self-hatred usually creates more avoidance. Instead of saying, I'm lazy, ask, what made this task difficult today? Was it distraction, overwhelm, a noisy environment, no clear starting point? When you understand the obstacle, you can change the system instead of blaming yourself. Progress doesn't come from becoming a different person. It comes from understanding the person you already are and building habits that work with your brain, not against it. Before we end, I want to leave you with one idea that changed the way I think about ADHD. Stop chasing discipline. Start designing your environment. For years, you may have believed the answer was to become stronger, more motivated, more disciplined. But your approach isn't always all made out of willpower. But what if you've been fighting the wrong battle? You don't win by forcing an ADHD brain to behave like a neurotypical brain. You win by building a life where your brain doesn't have to fight every single day. Make the good habits obvious. Make distractions harder to reach. Break big tasks into tiny starting points. Use reminders, timers, checklists, and routines. Not because you're weak, but because you're designing for the way your brain works. The most successful people don't rely on willpower every day. They rely on systems that make the right choice easier than the wrong one. Your goal isn't to become someone else. Your goal is to build an environment where the best version of you can finally show up. And when you stop fighting your brain, before you leave, knowing what's happening in your brain is only half the battle. The real challenge is getting yourself to take action when your brain says, maybe later. That's why I made the next video. In it, I'll show you how to build a personalized dopamine menu, a simple system that helps you get moving when motivation disappears and even small tasks feel impossible. You can finally start working with it.